Hello and welcome to Mostly Sapphic Books. Last year I made a video talking about my most anticipated lesbian book releases of 2025. This year I am doing exactly the same thing. This is my list of 20 or so of my most anticipated lesbian books of 2026. Mostly. It is called Mostly Sapphic Books. There are a couple books on this that are not sapphic but are queer, but I'll talk about them later. I'll split this video into sections. Section 1 is books from authors that I've read before, or continuations of series that I've started, or books that I can trust to be solid, because I have a foundational understanding of either the author or the world in which they exist. You get it. My second category is books whose authors I've never read before, but they sound really interesting, and so I hope they are good. Then I'll do a couple non-sapphic books, and then at the very end of the video I will tell you my most anticipated book of the year. So for the first section of authors that I've read before, we are going to start with Is This a Cry for Help by Emily Austen, which releases on January 13th. This is a lit fic novel about a lesbian librarian whose community is accosted by these book banners. There's a very small but very loud religious group trying to ban a bunch of books from the library where she works. I actually got to read an arc of this early, and spoiler alert, I gave it 5 stars. Very fun. Very classic Emily Austen. She's a great lit fic writer if you haven't read any of her stuff. This is great. Exactly what you'd expect. Really good. Very timely and contemporary, good message. And good characterization for it too. Then on March 3rd, we have Anderson in Bloom by Jennifer Dugan. Jennifer Dugan, classic lesbian fiction author, writes a billion books a year, approximately. Does adult, does YA, does graphic novels, does just contemporary romance, contemporary YA, does supernatural stuff. She does a lot, but it all has a Jennifer Dugan flavor, and I like it. They're not all incredible 5-star books, but they're all typically pretty solid for the most part. I'll read you a brief synopsis of this one. A hilariously sexy enemies to lovers second chance rom-com about a reclusive former child star turned florist whose quiet life is turned upside down when her annoyingly hot ex and former co-star shows up in town with plans to write a tell-all memoir. That sounds good. That sounds very classic. Kind of sounds like Dream On Ramona Riley a bit, if you've read that. But I love this cover. I think it's beautiful. I love this sort of retro comic book style art. And if you zoom in, you even see the dot, the sort of pointillism of the sort of printing process. I think it's a beautiful cover, and it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. I didn't get the celebrity aspect of that from this cover, but clearly a contemporary adult romance about a florist. You love to see it. Then on May 12th, you're not gonna believe it, it's another Jennifer Dugan book. This is a YA novel called Girls Like Us, and this is actually a sequel to her novel Some Girls Do, which is one of my favorite Jennifer Dugan books. That book is about a girl she was a beauty pageant queen, but is also more interested in cars than being pretty, but I think she gets scholarship money or something. And then another girl who's a track star, and they fall in love. And this sequel is about their senior year and them going off to college and maybe struggling through their relationship. And growing into adulthood, and that sounds fun. I really like these characters. It's been a couple of years since I read that book, but I am happy that it's getting a sequel, and I hope I like it as much as I liked the first one. Then on August 25th, you're not gonna believe it, it's another Jennifer Dugan book. Girl, slow down. This is Bite Me, a graphic novel written by Jennifer Dugan and illustrated by Kit Seaton. This looks good. This is about a teenage vampire who falls for the vampire hunter hunting her, who's also another teenage girl. Could be good. I'm excited to see where this goes. Jennifer Dugan has done a couple of graphic novels. There's one called Coven, about witches, which was not very good. The main character in that book is completely useless and the least interesting character in the entire book, and the end is unintentionally funny because the kids get involved in all this witchy drama, and do absolutely fucking nothing. And then the adults just come in as a deus ex machina and save the day, which is hilarious from an adult standpoint. But not really what you want out of your YA novel. Sorry for spoilers about the poorly done graphic novel from Jennifer Dugan. In good news, she had a better graphic novel that I forget the name of, ironically, but it's about werewolves. That was good. That was about a teenage werewolf. I recommend that one. Don't read Coven. So I think this book, Bite Me, will cement whether or not Jennifer Dugan should keep doing paranormal YA graphic novels. She's had one good one and one not so good one. Let's see where this one lands. And then on February 3rd, not a Jennifer Dugan novel. This is Get Over It, April Evans by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a sequel, but not really a sequel. It's a contemporary romance series that's all set in the same universe about the same group of friends, but really these are standalone novels. The first book was called Dream On, Ramona Riley, that I referenced earlier, and this is about her friend April. And this is another small town lesbian romance from Ashley Herring Blake. If you've read her, which you probably have, she's a very popular author, and she also writes a lot of books. You kind of know what to expect from this. The brief summary line of this is, a summer job at a lake town resort brings together two women with an unlikely connection, which tells me absolutely jack shit about these characters. I remember April Evans is like a tattoo artist, or an artist. She's friends with Ramona Riley from the other book, and then I guess she meets some fucking girl. I guess I could read the actual description. I'm not gonna read that all out loud to you. Ooh, she has an ex-fiance who left her for a younger woman 3 years ago. And so she takes a job at a summer lake, and then she meets a woman named Daphne Love, because of course her name is Daphne Love. And then it seems like they get into some kind of art contest together at the lake, and then they fall in love. So maybe like a sort of rivals to lovers. Whatever. I'm sure it'll be decent, because Ashley Herring Blake is a good writer. April wasn't my favorite character in the first book. I was more interested in the little sister, who I hope gets a book next. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Then on June 9th, there's You Won't Forget Me by Mazey Eddings, who wrote Late Bloomer, which I liked. It was kind of chaotic, but I enjoyed it, and so I think I'll like this as well. I'm looking on the Goodreads page for this, and it actually doesn't have a description. I might be able to find it somewhere else, but let's just judge this book by its cover, because I do love the cover. The colors are really nice. Late Bloomer also had a good cover, but I think this tells me most of what I need to know. Sort of like Anderson and Bloom. I'm guessing a adult romance about musicians. They seem to be playing instruments. And you know what? I don't need to know more than that. The last book I read of theirs was so chaotic that I just want to go into this one chaotically as well. I don't know what's gonna happen. I want to be surprised, and that will just up the chaos levels even more, and then we'll just have a fun time with that. I do like the art style. It's also kind of retro comic booky, sort of like Anderson and Bloom. Maybe I have a style, maybe I'm drawn to certain covers. I do judge book by their covers, because I don't like to read descriptions, because I don't want spoilers. But fun. I'm sure that'll be okay. This looks like fun, and I am excited for that. Looks like a good summer book, like bright colors. We'll see. Now we'll get into some series. On August 11th, there's Bridget and Gabe Are Not Okay by Lex Croucher. This is a sequel to Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, which I also read over a year ago and don't remember super well, but it's sort of a medieval thing. I think Art is King Arthur, or like sort of vaguely inspired by King Arthur. Is King Arthur or Prince Arthur, whatever. They're teenagers. Him and his sister, and then his sister falls in love with a lady knight, and then I think King Arthur's with the dude, so there's a gay couple and a lesbian couple, if I remember correctly. And it's really fun. I really like Lex Croucher's style. It's sort of like not too serious. It's not flippant, and it's not like super duper funny or like hilarious in an I'm trying to write a comedy way, but there's a sort of lighthearted tone to their writing that comes across kind of whimsically and like fun and just enjoyable, and you can really sink into it, and I think they're a good writer, and I really vibe with that writing style. So I'm interested in this, even though I don't remember what happens in the first one very well. I'll probably do like a refresher and watch some videos on that. Not mine, I didn't make one, but someone else probably did, and it's probably better than mine, so thank you to that person. Next one I'm really excited for, One Night Stand by Meagan Kaufman and Amie Spooner. This is a sequel to Ladies' Night, about a sort of princess or a noblewoman who falls in love with a lady knight. And this one is hilariously fantastical, and it knows it's trying to be funny, and it is really funny, and it breaks the fourth wall, and it's silly, and it makes sort of contemporary references, even though it is also set in this medieval time period. I had a lot of fun with this, and I think this will be sort of like a serialized thing, because the first one didn't end on a cliffhanger or anything, but I think it'll be these two characters off on a brand new adventure, and I'm really excited to get into that. I loved the tone of this writing. This was a 5-star book for me last year. One of my favorite books of 2025 was Ladies' Night by these authors, and I'm just really excited to get back into this world. I don't know if this will be the last book or if they'll do more or if it depends on how well this sells or whatever, but like I could read about these two forever, presumably, unless this one flops for some reason, but I do not see that happening. Then we have Nobody's Baby by Olivia Waite, which is a novella that comes out on March 10th. It is the sequel to the first book in the Dorothy Gentleman series that I don't remember. Again, I would also need a refresher on this. I remember when I read that, I said, you should wait to read that until all of the books are out. But that's just kind of how I feel about sci-fi, because I tend to forget things really quickly. This is a fun premise. We're on a spaceship where, like, you're sort of immortal, or, like, you can be reborn. They have the technology to, like, put you in a new body, but we have our main character is an old woman, and she becomes a detective, and it is kind of sort of cozy mystery kind of vibes. I think there is like death and stuff, but it's also got sort of a lighthearted tone, and it's really short. And the old woman, our main character, is also gay. I think the romantic aspects in that book didn't come in until the very end, so I think this one will be more romance heavy, if I'm remembering correctly. But I also need a refresher on this. But I am excited to see this series continue, because I really like the idea. It's a really unique premise. It's really interesting world building. I really liked, really just the whole idea of like this immortality spaceship journey. And I know the immortality is linked specifically to this spaceship, and like once they get to their destination, they don't have access to it anymore. But the journey from planet to planet is so long that they sort of have to keep being reincarnated in order to make it there in their lifetime. Interesting. A lot going on here. I'd love to see the lore expanded, because I remember really liking it, even if I don't remember the details. It was really interesting. Then, last but not least, the Obake Code by Makana Yamamoto comes out on February 19th, pretty soon. This is a sequel to Hamajang Luck, which was a very cool sci-fi sort of a ocean. I think it's compared to Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 8. Oceans, a team, a sort of found family team of thieves and hackers come together to pull off this heist against this big corporation. And this book, this sequel, actually has a different narrator. I believe it's told from the Obake. She's one of the hacker girls, if I remember. She's like the main hacker girl. And so I don't know how gay this one will be compared to the first one, but I imagine at least like those gay side characters will still be there. I don't remember if this girl specifically was also queer, or if we know that yet, because she wasn't the main character, so I don't really remember anything about her love life, if she has one. But I really like this world, and like the found family dynamics of this are really cute, and you really like all of these people, so I don't even mind that it has a different narrator. I'm interested to see where this goes. Now we are getting into books from authors I've never read before. I can't attest to the quality of these. I don't know if they'll be good, but they sound interesting, and so I hope they are good. First up, on January 20th, we have Hemlock by Melissa Faliveno. A woman haunted by a dark inheritance returns to the woods where her mother vanished in this queer gothic novel. Sold. And then the final line, a butch black swan. Absolutely Seaton. Here for that. Don't really remember the Black Swan story well. I saw the movie like 15 years ago because it had gay shit in it. Didn't care about anything except the gay shit, and I only remember that scene. So I don't know what to expect from that, but I'm fucking seated. More butches, please. Then on February 10th, we have To the Death by Andrea Tang. Two teens are pitted against each other in a magical duel for revenge, but they'll have to fight their growing attraction first. This sounds really cool. I did read the description the other day, and apparently they're like literally in like a magical dueling arena, like a competition, like where people like fight each other all the time, and I think that sounds like fucking rad. I sort of like battle magic, because that's not really what you see in YA nowadays. Tamsin Blackwood is trapped. She wants to make a name for herself in the magical dueling circuit. Magical dueling circuit? That sounds fucking rad. I'm excited. And I also think this cover's really cool and like dynamic and vibrant. Then we have Hell's Heart by Alexis Hall. This comes out March 10th. I requested an early copy of this on NetGalley and did not get approved by Tor, which is reasonable because I have no clout. This does sound really good though. I think the cover's beautiful, really drew my eye, and it's also compared to Gideon the Ninth meets Moby Dick. Cool, I love Gideon the Ninth. This is a sci-fi debut about a woman in space who is scavenging this magical substance from Jupiter that they need to harvest to run their planet or whatever. I don't want to read the full description because I don't want spoilers. But there seems to be some kind of Leviathan eldritch monster that's sort of terrorizing her spaceship or something. I'm interested. I want to read this, even though Tor doesn't want me to. They do. They want me to buy it, and I won't. I'll get it from the library. Take that. Take that, Tor. Unless it's really good, and then I probably will buy a physical copy. Take that, Tor. Then, also on March 10th, we have The Fox and the Devil by Kirsten Waite. An obsession with a beautiful serial killer entangles a vampire hunter's daughter in an immortal sapphic romance in this enthralling gothic fantasy. That sounds cool. I actually have read this author before. They wrote a book called Hide, which sucked. Sorry. I don't know. I didn't think the writing was very good, actually. That does make me a little bit concerned for this. But this is a very different genre, and so I'm willing to give this author another chance. That was like a contemporary horror about a group of people who are trapped in a scary slasher hide-and-seek game in an amusement park. And then there's a bunch of weird shit about cults. This is like vampires, like fantasy. So very different, and it sounds so cool that I really, really want it to be good. So I'm just going to assume that Kirsten Waite has vastly improved as an author since writing that book Hide. Please. I hope so. Also on March 10th, big day, You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom by Vincent Torrado. This is about a man who dies, and his family gathers for the will, but they can only get their inheritance if they kill the family member who is secretly a demon. Cool. Very intrigued. Love like a murder mystery situation here. I guess it's not a murder mystery, but like, you know what I mean. It kind of sounds like Knives Out. I didn't like Knives Out either, so I don't want to compare it to that. I hope this is good. I don't know how gay this will be. It sounds like an ensemble cast, but it was tagged lesbian, so one of these descendants better be a lesbian. Then on April 14th, Wife-Shaped Bodies by Laura Crane Hill. I like the description of this. Sorrowland meets Manhunt in this literary horror debut in which an isolated newlywed, covered in mushroom growths like all the other wives in her community, strikes a precarious balance between following her husband's strict rules and pursuing an intense connection with a woman who makes her question everything. So this is some kind of mycological horror where all of the women in the village are infested with mushrooms and are probably in like a hive mind situation, perhaps? Sounds very cool. And it sounds deep. I didn't realize it was like literary horror. So I'm expecting like profound themes here. I'm intrigued by that. Then on June 9th, Her Sharp Embrace by Kate Koenig. I don't know how to say that without a German accent. This is a fantasy novel. It seems kind of like high fantasy, about a woman who's called a saint in this description, who leaves her life of sainthood behind to date a magical outlaw who runs like a crew of bandits, and then they get up to shenanigans. I'm into that. I've sort of not been reading a lot of fantasy lately, but I mean, I've always liked fantasy, and so like I'm hoping by the time this comes out, I'm like back into it, or maybe this could get me back into this sort of like big time fantasy genre. It seems like there's a lot of world building with this, with like the religious stuff, and also this nightshade group of outlaws. Also the head outlaw is named Lennon, which is a very masculine name for a woman, so Butch Outlaw? Fine with it. This next book made the list on name alone, The Divine Gardener's Handbook, or What to Do If Your Girlfriend Accidentally Turns Off the Sun. Incredibly intriguing. Very unique title. I need to know more. This comes out August 18th. This also comps Tamsin Muir, who wrote Gideon the Ninth. This joyful debut follows a gardener fighting to secure her dream job in the Divine Gardens, manipulating God, antagonizing her attractive rival, and running afoul of a brewing rebellion along the way. That does sound like fantasy, and that sounds very compelling. So hopefully I will be in my fantasy era mid next year, this year, depending on when you see the video. I'm recording at the very end of 2025. And here I'll name a couple of books that aren't about lesbians, because I don't only read books about lesbians. I mostly read books about lesbians. But I only have two here, and they're both queer, and I assume that if you're interested in reading about lesbians, you're probably at least vaguely interested in reading about the queer community at large, so you might be interested in these. Just like last year, my one non-Sapphic book was an Andrew Joseph Waite book. This year we have an Andrew Joseph Waite book. This is another YA novel of his. It doesn't have a release date, but it's set vaguely for the fall. This one is called You're No Better. It follows a trans boy whose father is a serial killer, and he has to convince everyone that he isn't a serial killer like his father. Interested. Andrew Joseph Waite is just an incredible author. I've read all of his books. I love his writing style. I know this is gonna hit, and it's gonna be like sort of horror, but not as horrific as his adult debut that came out last year. Just his general YA horror, which is still pretty profound, pretty strong. Always interested in Andrew Joseph Waite's books. Then we actually have a poetry book. This also doesn't have a release date yet, but I believe it is going to be coming out this year. This is A Book of Queer Prayer by J. Orlando. Full disclosure, I do know this guy. I'm friends with him. I know a guy. You can call it nepotism if you want, but it's not, because he's genuinely a fantastic author. We met on a writing forum. He's a great dude. I've known him for like over 10 years. This isn't his first book. His first chapbook was called A Tangled Lineage. He writes really good poetry, and it's really accessible. I'm not even a poetry guy, but I'm really drawn to this. A lot of poetry, I don't care, or I don't bother to care. And his is very descriptive. He writes very personably, but he takes broader themes and sometimes applies them to himself and his life. I have read some of the poems in A Book of Queer Prayers. He let me read some early stuff. I gave him some feedback. I baited this, but it was mostly gushing, because he's a fantastic author. He writes a lot about the trans experience and his personal family life, and also living in Appalachia. That's a big thing for him. And he also studied religion and grew up religious. And I imagine this book will heavily feature the connection between his queerness and his religious ideology. Again, you can call this a nepotism recommendation, but he's a genuinely very good author. If he wasn't good, I just wouldn't talk about it. So if you like poetry, that's my poetry recommendation of the year. Now it is time for my most anticipated book of 2026. You know it. You love it. You're also waiting for it. Electo the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Kind of. Not really. This is sort of the fake out answer. This doesn't have a 2026 release date. This was my most anticipated book of 2025. It didn't come out. It's my most anticipated book of 2026. Will it come out? We don't have a release date. Or a cover. It's not looking great. But maybe for the back half. You never know, because a lot of these books are for the first half of 2026. Because there aren't a lot of authors being like, hey, it's January 1st. Please pre-order my book that comes out in December of 2026. No one's doing that. So most of these books are for the start of the year. So maybe Electo the Ninth at the end of the year? Question mark? Or we'll just be back here again in 2027 with this as my most anticipated book. For like the fourth year in a row, the fifth book, I read Gideon in like 2023. Yeah, it'll be on this list for the foreseeable future. I'm fine. This is fine. But no, my actual top book of the year, real book for real, with a real release date, which is July 28th, 2026, is The Felicity Complex by August Clark. Annie Bot meets Fallout. 6 women created in a lab designed to serve the billionaires of the future in a luxury fallout shelter rebel against their programming after the end times arrive. I love the way this description is written. I have read this description. Meet Hallelujah, Grown in a lab and educated in the ways of concierge hospitality, she believes in her duty to comfort the Lord-anointed refugees of the apocalypse, even if her lover Anastasia disagrees, even if her creator, Dr. Young Husband, is disappointed in her. Don't worry, everyone is safe from communists in the Felicity Complex. Look, Hallelujah, guests have finally arrived. Hallelujah and her sister specimens have waited ages for you. Never mind the secrets other rich survivalists may be hiding. Just make sure they don't notice the violent intentions behind our staff's wide, wide smiles. So the plot of this book is Eat the Rich. So the plot of August Clark's last book, Metal from Heaven, was seize the means of production. Literally. In multiple meanings of the word seize. And the plot of this book sounds like Eat the Rich. Literally. I love it. I love August Clark's writing style. I've read all of his book. This entire shelf, literally just August Clark. I will read anything August Clark puts out. They have such a lush, descriptive, beautiful, iconic, recognizable writing style that I just cannot get more. I am feral for this. I reread their books. I devour them. I only discovered this author in 2025, and he is one of my favorite writers right now. They did a YA trilogy, and then their last book, Metal from Heaven, was very, very serious and very heavy, and now this one seems like fun. It's described as humorous, which I think will suit August Clark's writing style really well. You see some humor in the Scapegracers trilogy, but Metal from Heaven was lacking in that, and this is also his shortest book so far, so I think it'll be like a fun little bite-sized kind of thing. It's not that short, it's 320 pages, but I think Metal from Heaven was like 450 or something, give or take. So I think this will be a totally different vibe, but I think it'll still be August Clark's writing style, which is so recognizable. I think if you put their writing style in a lineup next to other excerpts, if you put paragraphs in a fucking mugshot lineup, whatever that's called, I could pick out August Clark's writing style. It's so distinct. It's so lush, the way he uses adjectives and combines words together. Makes me feral, and I can't fucking wait to read this. I'm sad I have to wait till July. I am constantly checking NetGalley. I literally have a tab open on my phone that is just the LGBT section of NetGalley that I refresh every single day. Just waiting for this book to be uploaded so that I can request an ARC and then probably get denied because I have no clout. But Erewhon, if you're watching this, please. I want it so bad. I need to read this with my gay little hands. I will be buying a copy. As you can see, I own physical copies of all of August Clark's books. I have multiple copies of nearly every single book he's ever written, so like I will buy a copy. You will not lose a sale by giving me an ARC. I'm still refreshing. I will be here immediately as soon as this ARC drops. We also don't have a cover yet, so maybe by the time this video comes out there will be a cover and you're looking at something interesting, but I'm looking at a black box that just says the title. So I hope the cover's good. If not, I don't care, because I care about what's inside of the book. But I do think this could be a fun cover. And I'd like it. Please let me read this. I mean, you will, on July 28th, when the book comes out, and I buy it and devour this. So, by far, my most anticipated book of the year. That's actually confirmed to exist. But that is it. This video is long. And there's only like 20-some books on here. I think 22. But I tried to get 20 gay books, and then I had just 2 extras for people who aren't gay, even though you're definitely a lesbian if you're here, because why would you be? But at the end of the year, I plan to review all of these books, like in a ranking, and see if they stacked up to my expectations, if they deserved a spot on this list, if they flopped so hard that I absolutely hated them and blacklisted the authors from ever being read again. That's only happened once. I don't do that. Except that one time that it happened. Yeah, subscribe and join me for that, or tell me what books that you are interested in reading, because this is not an exhaustive list. I hope to get around to all of these, but I will hopefully also be reading more books than this. And again, there's definitely some books that flew under my radar here. These are just books that came out in the first half of the year, and they're just books that I've heard about. And so if you've heard about books that I haven't, I'm particularly interested in butch books, more butch black swans. That's not happening. There's one, and I'm glad there's one. But if you have any lesbian books you think I like and need to read, tell me, because I want to add them to my extensive TBR that is never ending, but that I will get around to eventually one day. But yeah, Happy New Year. I hope you have a good year of reading.